This is lecture number 4 from our online SEM training workshop. In this lecture, I'll be telling you how to develop a structural model in Amos. Okay, so for the purpose of this lecture, we'll be using the following SEM model and we will be replicating the same model in Amos. Okay, so we can see that there are three latent variables: empowerment, emotional exhaustion, and job satisfaction. This structural model was taken from a study that is related to the effects of wife's principles, psychological empowerment on job satisfaction and burnout. So we can see that there are three latent variables in this particular structural model. One is empowerment, then we have emotional exhaustion, and we have job satisfaction. Two of these variables, emotional exhaustion and job satisfaction, has got three indicator items, and one of the latent variables called empowerment has got four indicator variables. So we'll be replicating the same model in Amos. Okay, so this is the Amos environment. Firstly, you can see that this window over here where we will be replicating the SEM model or the structural model that we just discussed is in portrait mode. So we are first going to change this mode from portrait to landscape. So we go to view and interface properties. In the interface properties, you can see the orientation as portrait and landscape. So we just click on select. So we just select landscape and apply, and we close this. Okay, so now you can see that we have a lot of icons over here which will help us in drawing our structural model. So the first one, this rectangular box, is used to draw the observed variables. Then we have this elliptical box which we use to draw unobserved variables. Then we have a icon to draw the latent variables. Then we can draw the direct effects using the single headed arrow. We can specify the covariance. Then we have then if we require to add a unique variable to an existing variable, we can use this icon. If we would like to specify the caption for the figure, we can use this icon. In order to get the list of variables in the model, we can select this icon. This icon over here will give you the list of variables in the data set. This icon we can use to select one object at a time. Then this will select all the objects at a time. This will deselect all the objects. Then if you would like to duplicate any object, we can use this particular icon. If you would like to move around the object, we can use the move objects. Then if you want to delete an object, we can use this icon. Then this icon is used for changing the shape of the object. This icon we use to rotate the indicators around the latent variable. Then if you want to reflect the indicators, if you want to reflect or if you want to change the orientation of the indicators of a latent variable, we can use this icon. This icon is used for repositioning the path, the screen, the path diagram on the screen. Then one of the objects is preserve symmetries. If you want to preserve symmetries while you are making changes to your object, we select this preserve symmetries icon. So we will be using these icons frequently when we are developing our models. Okay, so let's start and see how to develop a structural model in Amos. So we have this particular structural model that we will be replicating in Amos. We can see that we have one latent variable which has got four indicators. So I'll select this draw a latent variable icon, and I'll just click on this path diagram screen once. If I click once, I'll get a latent variable object here. Keeping this latent variable object selected, I'll click again. So I'll get one indicator attached to the latent variable. I click again, I get two indicators attached to the latent variable. I click once again, I get three, and again if I click, I get the fourth indicator. So my variable, my first latent variable called empowerment, has got four indicator variables which I have specified. Then I have uh, another latent variable called emotional exhaustion, which has got three latent variables, which has got three indicators. So I again select this, I click once, so I get the latent variable object. Then I, keeping this selected, I'll press my mouse, the left mouse of the left button on my mouse, I'll press 3 times. Again, keeping using this, selecting this icon, I'll click once, and then I'll press my left button on the mouse 3 times. Okay, so I can see that I have now drawn three latent variables as shown here. Okay, so now I'll be first changing their orientation. So what I'll do is I'll select this rotate the indicators of the variable icon, and I go over here. I once I take my mouse over the latent variable object, it will turn red. Okay, it means that this particular object has been selected. Now I again click my mouse, the left button, okay, to change the orientation of the indicators. I click once, click twice, I click 3 times. Similarly, I want to change the orientation of this icon. I change once. The orientation of this icon, I click the left button on the mouse. If you click once, it will rotate by 90 degrees. Okay, now I want to move my latent variables so that I can see all these latent variables on the path diagram screen. Okay, I can see that some of the variables, they are going beyond the screen. Okay, so in order to make sure that I can see all the latent variables together, I'll just have to move these latent variables within the screen that is visible to me. Okay, so if I select the move icon and I take my mouse over the latent variable and I move, so I see only that the latent object is moving. Okay, I want to move the entire measurement model. Okay, so in order to do that, I'll select this particular icon over here called preserve symmetries. Once I click preserve symmetries, I take my mouse over the latent variable and I move. So now the entire measurement model is moving and the symmetry is maintained. There is no distortion when I am moving my measurement model. Similarly, I'll move this particular latent variable, and I'll move this particular latent variable so that all the variables, they are visible to me. Okay, now I can see that the first latent variable has got 4 indicators, the second has got 3 indicators, and the third one has got 3 indicators. Now I want to label these measurement models. So the first latent variable is called empowerment. So I'll just select this particular latent variable and I right click on my mouse. I get object properties. In the object properties, there is a box called variable name, where I'll write empowerment and close it. Similarly, I right click on this particular latent variable and I get the object properties box where I specify job satisfaction. Then I click on the third icon and emotional exhaustion. Okay, similarly I can label the indicator items on each of these latent variables. So Okay, so now I have labeled my latent variables, and okay, so now I have latent my labeled my my indicators for each of the latent variables. I can see that we have some error terms associated with each of the indicator items. In order to label this, we can use the plugin that comes with Amos. We just go to plugins, and we can we can click on name unobserved variables. Okay, once we click on this, we get all the we can see that all the unobserved variables were labeled. Okay, however, you can see that error 4 comes at the top and error 1 comes at the bottom. So what I can do is I can just go to this particular icon which says reflect the indicators of a latent variable. I just go here, and I go here on the empowerment latent object, and I click once. Okay, so I see that it goes on, it is reflected on the other side. I click against keeping empowerment selected, and I click again. Okay, so I can see now my icons, they are organized. Similarly, what I can do is I have 5 6 7, they are arranged, and for this particular icons, the items are not arranged, so I just click. Okay, now you can see that all the error terms, they are okay. So now I select the direct effects icon, and I draw a direct effect from empowerment to emotional exhaustion. Okay, then I draw a direct effect from empowerment to job satisfaction, and one direct effect from job satisfaction to emotional exhaustion. So I can see that I have specified the the structural model, and that from the particular study. So we can so through this okay, so this is our structural model. Okay, now next step will be to run the model. Okay, so this is how we specify a structural model in Amos. We have specified the latent variables and the indicators associated with each of the latent variables. We have specified the direct effects into the model.